States to be dragged into fighting another war in Iraq because there is no American military solution to the larger crisis in Iraq. The only lasting solution is reconciliation among Iraqi communities and stronger Iraqi security forces.
Is that just wishful thinking? But you did hear it there, no boots on the ground. But remember, that was preceded by no military action anymore. And before that, no more presence. But the situation on the ground has changed in Iraq, right? The new humanitarian help and likely airstrikes against ISIS is the extent for now of the help President Obama is planning in Iraq. But this is a big question. If this doesn't slow these terrorists and the crisis expands, what is the next move? Let's get some perspective from Bobby Ghosh. She's the managing editor of Quartz, joining us at the Magic Wall. More importantly, in your last administration at time, you spent a lot of time, not just in Iraq, but in this region, talking to the people who are now running for their lives. So let's remind people. ISIS, they're now calling themselves the Caliphate.
And they're calling themselves the Islamic State. They want the world to think of themselves not just as a group or movement, but as a country, as a state.
Religious state.
And a very religious state, a kind of perverse interpretation of Islam.
Extremism where if you are not with them, they want to kill you.
Even some of the people who you and I would think are with them, they want to kill. They want to kill pretty much everybody, Chris. This is a death cult. This is not a terrorist group as we know it. This is not a movement as we've seen before.
Death cult, worse than Hamas, worse than Al-Qaeda.
By many magnitudes worse than everything that we've seen. They're enjoying the act of killing people. They're enjoying the act of not just killing small groups, but large groups of people, hundreds of people slaughtered together. They're making videos of this thing and want the world to see. They're putting out instructional videos. They're issuing statements saying this is how you behead a person. In all the years that I've covered conflict around the world and terrorism in that part of the world, I've never seen anything this frightening.
Now, some of these, this is the videos of their handiwork. They're bragging about it. They see violence as a religious exercise. They're wrong, of course, but it doesn't matter because they're being successful. Yellow is where they are beating back two different military forces, the Iraqi army, which we trained, and not only are they kicking their foes across the land, they're taking a lot of their military assets, which we gave them, which they're getting increasingly better armed. Yes?
Yes, they are. Serious hardware. And this is only the Iraqi portion. They've also got a big chunk of Syria that they're controlling. Together, they control something like the size of Britain, like Great Britain. That's the size of territory over which they have almost complete control.
Now, the fact that they want to control makes them scary, but also makes them vulnerable, right? Because they will be setting out outposts. They will create places where you can attack them, as opposed to traditional terrorism where they keep hiding and retreating among civilians.
Eventually, yes. Right now, they're moving very quickly. They're taking territory. They're appointing local governors and police, but the fighting force is moving, is scattered and moving. They're fighting multiple fronts. They're fighting against the Syrians. They're fighting against the Kurds, who are our friends in northern Iraq. They've even gone into Lebanon here and attacked in Lebanon. So they're fighting multiple fronts. They're spread thin, and every time they open a new front, we think, well, this is as far as they can go. But they seem to be able to go farther and farther.
The Iraqi military losing, clearly. The Kurds, good fighters, but they need better weaponry. That's a question for the U.S. and the international community, whether they give them those, right?
Right now, nobody's put up a real fight. When the Iraqi military was faced with these guys, they just simply backed away. They put their guns down and left. The Kurds, when they came up with them, they withdrew from areas in where ISIS was operating and moved into sort of the heartland of Kurdistan, intending to protect Kurdistan. So nobody has really given these guys a real fight outside of Syria.
Question is, can they? And now the latest casualties of their progress is that this has now become a genocide. They're coming to Christians, they're coming to minority groups and saying, you either change to be like us or we'll kill you, or maybe we'll just kill you anyway. What do we see in these groups? Because you've been among them. You know these cultures.
This is a part of Iraq, this is a part of the Middle East that is incredibly diverse. I don't know any other place all over the Middle East that has this kind of diversity. There are Christian populations, there are groups called Yazidis, Shabak. Some of these religions predate Islam. Some of these are thousands of years old, and these little communities, 50,000 here, 100,000 there, they have survived for millennia.
And now they're being wiped out.
Now they're under real threat of being completely eliminated.
So you have the Yazidis, we've heard about this minority group flying up to the Sinjar, up onto a mountaintop, literally. That's their last place of refuge. They don't have water, and the troops are closing in. Only thing we can believe is they want to kill them.
Yes, there are 40 or 50,000 people, we believe, out in the mountains. We've seen photographs of that. It looks biblical. It looks like like an exodus of people, and they are completely exposed on those mountaintops. They're not like there's a warren of caves that they can hide in and take shelter.
It's high ground, but with none of the benefits.
It's high ground with no benefits.
So this may be the key. Okay, right or wrong. Once you start killing Christians, you will get more international attention. That's happening. We're
Certainly
covering it in a way.
attention, yeah,
Because
absolutely.
but to be fair, Christians have been taking a beating around the world for a while now. It's been ignored. We're looking at the Middle East in Jerusalem. Used to be 70% Christian, now less than 10%, and they're being kicked out in very harsh ways. But this is an all-out genocide. How do you think this changes the fates?
Well, this forces Western powers to pay attention. France has offered them refuge. The U.S. has obviously been. We saw the president last night speak up much more forcefully, and is the authorization of force. That is going to change some of the calculus on the ground. But the question is whether it'll happen fast enough to save those Christians. Right now, they're fleeing. They're trying to stay with friends and relatives wherever they can, or they're staying in sort of refugee encampments. But can we get there fast enough? Because it's not. We can argue, and the president is saying there will be no boots on the ground. Clear, that's fine. None of our boots, but there've got to be some boots on the ground. These ISIS terrorists, they're on the ground, and they can only realistically be taken out on the ground. Those have to be Iraqi boots, those have to be Kurdish boots. Maybe the Turks get involved and others, because the one thing about ISIS that we can say with any confidence is that everybody hates them. They hate everybody, but in turn everybody hates them.
But
so we can build an alliance.
They're getting popularity among those who want to create terror. That's why we're just showing you this last map. No matter what the name is of the organization, there's a common philosophy, there's a common motivation, and now there's going to be a common cash flow. And that's why you have to look. It's not just what's going on in Iraq. We've been ignoring Syria. Over 100,000 people killed there in what's going on, ISIS instrumental. So you have Syria, Iraq, Yemen. You have, it looks like Al-Qaeda, but it's changing. The brand is irrelevant. It's what the intentions are. North Africa, another hotbed that's being ignored.
Of
So we'll
course,
see it
Boko
again.
Haram here in Nigeria.
That's right.
And the interesting thing is that a lot of these groups that were previously affiliated to Al-Qaeda, now they're pledging their allegiance to ISIS, to the so-called Caliph of ISIS. And that means, at least in the terrorism community, he is the new shining star.
That's right.
The Caliph Abu Bakr.
And because within Islam, being the Caliph means that you are the legitimate religious leader. The Sunnis
Yeah.
believe you'd be elected. The Shia believe you have to be a descendant of Muhammad. But in either way,
Yeah, Chris,
you're
but very
important.
few Muslims outside of those terrorist groups think of him as the Caliph. They think of him as a terrorist leader
Right.
who's trying to claim the role of Caliph. It would be like a Christian fundamentalist
Right.
terrorist claiming to be a pope.
Right, and increasingly they are training to do attacks outside of these areas, specifically the U.S., so they matter.
Definitely.
Bobby Ghosh, thank you very much. We need to learn more about this because the threat's growing every day. Coming up.
So, the threat's growing every day, and we need to learn more about this. So if you start killing Christians, you get more international attention. So just killing Muslims or black people, that don't get you international attention. But if you start killing Christians,